I am definitely not in the worst part of town trying to pick up prostitutes. I'll explain on this episode of The Hot Zone. Cucuta is a place in crisis because there are 300,000 or more Venezuelans currently here in Cucuta, and they are flooding into this city, this right here on the border from Venezuela, as Venezuela really just crumbles. It's a slow motion train wreck over there. The kind of things that we've heard over and over again are just how people are literally starving to death. Children are malnourished. There's no medicine. There's no toilet paper. There's nothing over there. We're watching people. We're watching people come across carrying copper cable wrapped around their legs, and we ask them like what they're doing, and they're selling the copper cable that they've ripped out of the walls in buildings in Venezuela and bring it over here and then turn around and sell it for whatever they can get, which probably explains why there's not a lot in the way of electricity in Venezuela right now in many of the border towns. So if you're wondering whether or not I'm kind of worried I'm going to get rolled out here, the only thing that really worries me is the fact that I'm talking to you at this moment, because it makes it a little bit more difficult for me to maintain situational awareness, let's say. But the very good thing is that this camera I'm talking into has a little screen right there that I can see who's coming up behind me, and that's very helpful right now. This is the kind of place where, it's a transitional space. Very, very dangerous. My friend John Correa talks about, not doing things in transitional spaces that are distracting, because it leaves you open to being robbed. So I might just check behind me once in a while, but that's why I'm doing that, because this is definitely not a good neighborhood. Anyway, we got here and we've been interviewing Venezuelans for the last several days and listening to their stories of absolute suffering and hardship and death, and just they're all so angry at the dictator Nicolas Maduro. As a matter of fact, if you say the name Maduro and there are Venezuelans in your hearing, they will immediately issue an expletive en masse. Maduro! Yeah, I'm not even going to translate what that means. Okay. It's just kind of the natural response for them. They are very upset about what's happened to their beautiful country. But for those fleeing Venezuela, crossing illegally is fraught with risk. These people say they're being preyed upon by members of criminal biker gangs called colectivos, who support Nicolas Maduro and charge a fee or even rob people trying to get across the river. And they aren't making empty threats. As I was filming on the riverbank, I was attacked by 3 men who tried to drag me into Venezuela. Now it's empty, but people are not... Come on, man. Fortunately, I was able to get away from my attackers, and they fled back across the river. But it was a powerful lesson in how Maduro's brutal regime uses its power against these people every day. So they're coming over here. They're desperate. They have no money. I mean, their money that they bring from Venezuela is literally worth less than toilet paper.
The country they are leaving is not a poor country. It has the world's largest oil reserves, and before the Socialist Revolution of 1999 was a prosperous exporter of coffee and cocoa. But government corruption led to hyperinflation, and today the average Venezuelan earns less than $15 per month.
Once the Venezuelans get across the bridge into the little border town of Cucuta, Colombia, the first thing they have to do is exchange their currency. That's become a real problem. The last time I was here, $1 would have bought about 900 Venezuelan bolivars, but today the exchange rate is 3,000 to the dollar. And that creates a real problem. That means that a month's pay in Venezuela will only buy you about 2 days worth of food, perhaps. And the people here are resorting to selling their jewelry, selling whatever they can to try to raise enough money to live. So there's nothing they can do with that. So they have to find a way to make money here. One of the reasons I'm out here tonight is that I'm kind of looking for ways to illustrate that. And one of the best ways you could illustrate that is by meeting prostitutes who are actually mothers with families and husbands back in Venezuela, but they're coming over here to Cucuta and selling their bodies for just a little bit of money in order to make enough money literally to survive. And so, before you go judging, you might ask yourself, just how far would you go to make sure that your children could eat at night, to make sure that your children could get the medical care that they needed? And it's hard to judge these poor women and what they're having to go through.
Nobody likes doing this work, but it's the only thing we have, because nobody wants to hire us Venezuelans. It's humiliating, but it's better than begging. We just want a better future and for Maduro to go. But my dream is to go to the United States.
We started out at a refugee center, a medical clinic, kind of supported by Samaritan's Purse, and it's where the mothers with children come to get things like formula and diapers and other medical care. There's a doctor there and that sort of thing. So there were a bunch of mothers lined up on the sidewalk outside, and we talked to some of them and heard their stories. Obviously, pretty heart-wrenching stories. So I'm in the public hospital in Cucuta, and this place is very busy because since there are no hospitals that have any way to care for people in Venezuela, the hospitals here are just overwhelmed with people coming in with everything from pregnancy to terrible gunshot wounds and all sorts of things. And the hospital here has spent millions of dollars caring for these people. We're going to go meet some of the mothers that are having their babies here. More than 25,000 Venezuelans who have settled in Colombia since 2015 have had babies. This presented a problem as those children were essentially stateless persons. The Colombian government decided to grant citizenship to these children so that they'll be able to go to school and access civil services.
They were caught in a limbo. And with this measure, the government of Colombia is saying that children's rights are above other interests, and that children will be afforded citizenship rights, a right to education, to healthcare, and the protection that the state can give them.
So I am here at the public hospital in Cucuta. All of the women that are waiting here, and they're all very close to delivering their babies. So this is Alexandra. She's telling me she's 29 years old. She's not pregnant. She's here because her daughter is pregnant, and her daughter is only 13 years old. But she's kind of having problems because here in Colombia, it's a crime to get a 13-year-old girl pregnant, as well it should be. But the state here isn't really sure how to handle such a young mother, and indeed, we're going to have a very young grandmother here at 29 years old. Since the U.S. is increasing sanctions against Nicolas Maduro and his supporters in an effort to finally bring some lasting improvement to this country, that only means that conditions inside Venezuela will likely continue to deteriorate in the short term.